I am Ferrin Peterson, joined here by Hall of Fame jockey Chris McCarron at Keeneland Racecourse. Thank you to Keeneland for letting us use your Lafayette room. Chris is in the U.S. Racing Hall of Fame. He was the U.S. champion jockey by earnings 4 times. He's won each leg of the Triple Crown, the Kentucky Derby, Preakness, and Belmont 2 times each. And he's won 9 Breeders' Cups. Chris, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Doctor.
Of course. Welcome back to the Boundless podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ferrin Peterson, a professional jockey and veterinarian in Lexington, Kentucky. We are here to learn from stories of resilience, risk-taking, and perseverance. Can you talk about your brother Gregg and how he got you on your first horse?
Yeah, Gregg started riding when I was a freshman in high school in 1969 at Suffolk Downs in Boston.
I was sitting in my living room at home with the rest of my family, and my brother Gregg was there, and Gregg had just begun riding. And he was cheering for Bill Hart that comes at the stretch, and he was riding Majestic Prince, and when he came down there the last 8th mile, Gregg was just jumping 10 feet off the floor. Come on, Bill, come on, Bill. And I was distracted from watching the race by watching Gregg, and it was just an unbelievable thing to see somebody so excited about a sporting event. And I've been hooked on it ever since.
So Chris followed brother Gregg to Pimlico, where his real education began.
And when I got out of school, I would get on the train, go 3 stops, and the track had its own train station, and I would get off and walk over to the track. I'd have to climb the fence to sneak in because you had to be 18 years of age unless you were accompanied by a chaperone, which I wasn't. And so I'd watch him ride the last 3 or 4 races and then go home and, do my homework and stuff. And it looked like so much fun. I mean, he expressed that he was having a lot of fun. Watching those horses come by me, I was in a place where I wouldn't be seen by any security guards or anything. So I was in a spot where they were galloping out after the race, and watching them come by me going so fast and everything, it looked exhilarating. So I thought, by the time I got to my junior year in high school, actually between my junior and senior year in high school, Gregg got me a job as a hot walker at Rockingham Park in Salem, New Hampshire. And I fell in love with it. It was something I've never experienced because we didn't grow up around horses or anything. But Gregg was a great athlete. He could play basketball, hockey, anything. And so he was able to bring that athletic ability into his race riding, and he was very successful. So once he got me that job, when I was 17 years old, I became infatuated with it. So when I graduated from school in 1972, I was on the track the next day.
Was it important for you to have that foundation as a hot walker before you started riding?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, the guy who taught us both how to ride, Odie Cleland was his name. He taught us the right way. He taught us horsemanship first. Mm-hmm. So you start out, the low man on the totem pole is the hot walker, and you graduate from that to a groom. And then if you're seeking to ride as either an exercise rider or a jockey, the next thing you do is you gallop horses, you breeze horses in the morning, exercise boy. And then once you've had a decent foundation with that, whenever the boss in the shed row, which would be Odie, thought you were ready to ride races, then he would go ahead and give you a mount. And that's what happened. I started galloping horses in January 1973, and I was an exercise boy for a year. And I rode my first race on January 24th of 1974.
What was that first race like?
Exciting, dirty.
Mm-hmm.
I broke last and finished last on a horse called Most Active. Uh-huh. And I thought, looking back, how ironic that name was, Most Active, because that's what I was throughout the rest of the year. I was very active, mm-hmm. Having ridden 2,199 races my first year.
Wow.
And yeah, I was riding from May until the end of the year, I was riding 7 days a week. I had such a strong meet at Pimlico, which was my first full meet. I shattered a record. The record there for 60 days was 90 wins, and I ended up winning 118 races in 60 days. That was my first full meet. And so my agent put pencil to paper and said, I just did the math. If we keep up this pace, we would have a chance to break Sandy Hawley's record, which was just set the year before. In 1973, he set it at Laurel Racecourse, which is where I set my record as well.
In 2 weeks, Chris had won his first race. He then went on to win a record total of 546 races that year, and the Ickless Award as the outstanding jockey in the nation.
I was young and dumb, and all I was doing was having fun. I really didn't know a great deal about what I was doing out there the first few months. But then, because I was riding so often, that I was able to learn the trade pretty quickly.
Were you self-taught, or did you have a mentor?
My brother Gregg was riding in Maryland at the time, so he was my number one mentor. Odie Clellon, our boss, who taught us how to ride, he was a jockey back in the 30s. He rode back when jockeys didn't even have goggles on when they were racing.
Sure.
Which
I can't imagine.
I can't either. I mean, catching all that dirt, all that sand, and everything would had to be treacherous. But
So he was tough.
Oh, well, yeah, Odie was tough, and then he got too big to ride, so he became a trainer, and he was a fantastic horseman, very good caretaker, and paid a lot of attention to detail, and so he would watch me ride very closely every day, every race, and comment about things I did right or wrong, and Gregg would do the same thing too. So it was nice to have a big brother in the jocks room while I was going through my formative years, because some of the older riders, they might come to you and say, hey, you messed up there, you screwed up here, and not knowing if they were being sincere or not, or if they were just jealous that I was winning so many races. I could easily go to Gregg and say, hey, Luigi just said that I did this wrong over there. What do you think? And a lot of times he would say, yeah, he's right. You shouldn't have done that. This is what you need to do instead of that. Or he would say, I don't listen to him. He always complains. So that helped a great deal.
Yeah, absolutely. So Gregg was an athlete, you said, in many sports. Were you also a well-rounded athlete, or did you just all of a sudden find yourself with success as a jockey?
All of us. I have 5 brothers and 3 sisters, and all of us except 2 sisters really didn't. We all played sports. And whatever the season was in Boston, that's what we played, except for hockey. We played hockey probably 6 months out of the year because we were very much into street hockey, which was a lot of fun. We would build our own goals, the nets, using 2x4s and chicken wire. And we would use a ball on the street instead of a puck. But I also skated on the ice a great deal. I played till I was about a sophomore in high school. But then I just wasn't good enough, and wasn't fast enough or big enough.
You probably developed great balance from that.
I did, yeah. Speaking of developing balance, I really believe that that's an attribute that we're born with. Someone who has balance can certainly train in such a way that you can improve that balance, mostly through strength training. But if you're not born with balance, you can't learn it. And I use the analogy, it's like a singing voice. If you cannot carry a tune, it doesn't matter how many music lessons you take, you're not going to be able to sing beautifully enough for people to want to listen. Same with balance. I had so many students come through my program, the North American Racing Academy, that had difficulty maintaining their balance on the equisizers. When I would put them through certain routines, I would move the equisizer in a certain way, trying to get them to lose their balance, and they would lose it too easily. Other students would be able to put themselves in that low perch on the horse's back, and I would shake and move the equisizer a certain way, and they would maintain their balance, keep keep their bodies right in the middle of that horse's back. But like I say, balance can be honed, but it's got to be there to begin with.
Right. I believe if we can be in the horse's center of gravity, then we're weightless to the horse. And if we're out of their center of gravity, they're pulling us along with them.
Yeah, it's I wouldn't go so far as to say weightless, but less weighty for sure. But the biggest difference between the good jockeys and the bad jockeys are the amount of hindrance that we create on the horse's back. If I'm in perfect balance and I can stay in sync with the stride, in perfect cadence with the stride, then I'm going to cause that horse to tire less quickly than someone who is not in good balance and good cadence with the stride. Those riders cause the horse to tire more quickly than it should because they're much more of a burden than those who have great balance and great rhythm.
Right. I've also heard you talk about the importance of getting along with a horse. What is your thought on that?
Oh, it was always my goal to get along with a horse. The number one thing that I seek as a horseman is cooperation from a horse. How am I going to get the cooperation? Number one is I try to get familiar with the horse. I try to get the horse familiar with me and see if we can cause this partnership to grow. And the way I would do that was either TLC or being the boss, being the aggressive one, being the
kind of the leader.
The leader, yeah. What's the word I'm looking for, Ferrin? It's
like on a hierarchy?
The alpha.
Okay.
Yeah. So once I determine what the horse seems to like or seem to dislike, I would use that information to my benefit and to the horse's benefit as well.
When you were riding on the Mid-Atlantic circuit, I've been out there, you were riding, multiple hundreds of races in a year. You often probably didn't know the horses you were getting on because you're traveling between different tracks. That means you're not always on them in the morning. So how did you establish that partnership in, a 5 to 10 minute warm-up that we get on racehorses?
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that. There was I rode a first-time starter for a very successful trainer in Southern California, Willard Proctor. And I came back after the race. My experience with the horse was, it was a filly, and she was very green. She didn't know anything about dirt in her face when she's running. She didn't know what it felt like, what it was going to be like to be in tight, in behind horses, and all the hoopla that goes on during the running of a race. And she was very, very green. And when I came back, and I had never breezed the filly, I'd never been on the filly before, in the mornings or afternoon. It was her first time out. And I made the suggestion that this filly seems like she needs blinkers. Well, Mr. Proctor said to me, let me get this straight. How much time have you spent with this filly? I had to think and go, okay, 12 minutes? From the time you gave me a leg up to the time we got to I dismounted after the race, it's probably about 12 minutes. He goes, yeah, and I've had this filly for 6 months. And you think you're going to tell me something I don't already know? I said, okay. Good point, Mr. Proctor. Good point. And I learned from that lesson. And the lesson that I took from that was, after a race, what I say and how I say it to a trainer or an owner will greatly determine whether or not I ride that horse again. So what I try to do is, and I think I was pretty successful at it, describe exactly what went on during the race. I would describe to him that she climbed when the dirt hit her in the face. I would tell him that she ducked the first time I tried to hit her with the stick. That she didn't like being in tight and she shied away from the other horses. Describing those occurrences, then the trainer could determine on his own, her own, whether or not there needs to be an equipment change or an equipment addition. And so you know, along those same lines, I would share information with the trainers that I thought would be helpful to that person to move the horse forward.
Mm-hmm.
What can I say? What can I offer after I've ridden or worked a horse in the morning? What can I offer that is going to be useful? What can I say that's one thing my boss Odie Clown taught us: don't ever talk bad about a trainer's horse. Don't knock them. Don't curse them. Offer something constructive. Mm-hmm. I would walk back after a race in behind other jockeys who are talking to their trainers, and they're talking really bad about the horse, And you think about it, the trainer has to live with that horse 7 days a week for months, maybe years. And we only have to deal with the horse for 12 minutes in the post-parade in the race.
Yeah.
Don't be negative.
Mm-hmm.
It's not helping anybody. I've heard jockeys say, "Oh, this piece of you-know-what can't outrun a fat man." Instead, what I would do if I rode a horse that ran just totally uncompetitively, ran poorly, I would say to the trainer, "Look, this horse, I could feel the effort. I mean, I could feel the strain." The trainer would say, "Did he get tired?" "Yeah, he got tired because he tried so hard."
Mm-hmm.
If they don't get tired, they're not trying.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, the horse got tired. And let the trainer determine if, in fact, he or she had enough foundation in the horse, had enough training in the horse to be fit enough to go ahead and compete.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if I tell a trainer that the horse really tried hard, just couldn't keep up, well, that's useful information.
Right.
That horse, the trainer is going to find an easier spot where that horse will be competitive next time.
Right. I really like your humble and respectful approach to the animal and the people.
Yeah, it just makes common sense.
Right. And they put a lot of work into this as well. It's their livelihood. Speaking of getting into horses' heads, I know Tiznow was one of your greatest racehorses you rode, but also one of the most difficult, at least as it pertained to the Mourning. Can you talk about that?
Tiznow had a mind, still does. He has a mind of his own. He's not going to be forced into anything that he doesn't want to do. Mm-hmm. He was tricky to ride only in the mornings. He was easy to ride in the afternoon, very straightforward. He was good in the starting gate. He always broke well and placed himself forwardly. He could run all day. He could run all day long, fast. But in the mornings, he could be a little obstreperous. He could be, screw you, I don't want to do this, But that one particular time, a week before the Breeders' Cup in 2001, Jay Robbins, his trainer, instructed me to breeze him, work him out a mile at Santa Anita. Well, we were on the track for 40 minutes before he finally went in and breezed. And I was trying to encourage him.
He's just standing on the track?
He would stand and look around, watch all the other horses train. And no matter what I tried, take the strap off him, get away from the pony, leave him by himself, get back with the pony, see if the pony boy can break me off. Everything resulted in him halting. He would just stick his toes in the ground, raise his head up in the air. Mm-hmm. No, I'm not going. Then all of a sudden he decided to go, and man, it
came time for him to go. He just went from a walk to a jog to a breeze, and he breezed a mile in 35 and 2.
And he's a big, strong horse. There's no way I was going to be able to control him in such a way that I could. I was situated at the 6.5 furlong pole in the middle of the clubhouse turn. Mm-hmm. And now I have to go get him all the way to the finish line. I got to gallop him 6.5 furlongs, break him off at the finish line, and go 1 mile around the track. No way. I'm not strong enough or don't have enough leverage to be able to hold that big horse, 1,200 pounds, all the way around to the wire. So he started picking it up with me. Once he started jogging, I had my feet out of the stirrups for the longest time. Once he started
And
jogging,
why was that? Get him to relax?
he was real. I was relaxed, and I wanted him to relax.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't. I said I was relaxed. I was relaxed physically, but not mentally.
The Breeders' Cup is a week away?
Not emotionally. I was not relaxed. TVG was there, documenting the whole thing, and there were so many people in the grandstand at St. Anita watching this all unfold, and they're all saying, "Well, strike a line through Tiznow. He's got to be something wrong with him. He doesn't want to train."
Mm-hmm.
I'll get to that in a second, but I decided to go ahead and start breezing him from the half-mile pole.
Mm-hmm.
So he worked a mile in 36 and 2 from the half-mile pole all the way around back to the half-mile pole. Horses don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
When the horses, 99.9% of the horses, when they hit the finish line during a workout, they'll gear down a little bit. They slow. They know the work's over, and they won't keep up that. They won't maintain that same amount of speed. But he did. He just kept right on going. He went every quarter mile in like 23, and you know, he was rolling. So what I surmised after everything was said and done, I went back and thought about how he was training. His exercise boy, Ruben, was a very good rider, but he was a freelance rider.
Right.
And he was trying to ride as many horses every morning as they possibly could.
Mm-hmm.
So he rushed his horses.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he would get down on the track, go off right away, do the workout, come back, get back to the barn, get on the next one.
Mm-hmm.
If you do it in a rapid fashion without wasting any time at all, you can ride about 15 head in the morning. And that was his goal.
Make more money.
The more he rides, because he was getting paid per mount.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't on a salary.
Right.
So I got a feeling that Tiznow was one of those who Ruben would try to rush, and Tiznow wanted to be out there. They're in their stall 23 hours a day. These really, really good horses, I have discovered that they're very intelligent as well. They're smarter than the average horses. And when they're out there, they want to be out there. They want to check everything out. You know, they enjoy watching every good horse I rode was that way.
Interesting.
They want to be on the track. They enjoy the company. They enjoy the activity. They enjoy the excitement. They enjoy the attention. They truly do. And Tiznow just got to the point where he said,
"You can't rush me."
"You can try to rush me all you want, but guess what? I'm planting my feet. I'm staying right here, and I'm not going to go until I'm good and ready." And that's what he did. So now a week later, we're in the paddock for the Breeders' Cup at Belmont Park, and I told Jay in the paddock, "Don't be alarmed, don't be surprised if you don't see me hitting him coming down through the stretch." He doesn't want to be forced. He doesn't want to be told what to do. So we got, we had a great trip. He was wide on the first turn because he had the 13 hole.
Side the daunting presence of a horse of the year, Tiznow, and he's right there just off the pace for it.
And so, but I was able to save some ground as we came out of the first turn. I was laying third on the outside. And then we went in that position all the way around there. I moved up to second before we straightened out. And Zook made a big run to my outside with Frankie Dettori.
Tiznow looms in second. Zook is there on the outside. Guided toward fight.
He was the favorite. He was the best horse in Europe in 2001. He's coming off a win in the Arc de Triomphe. One of the toughest races in the world to win, albeit on the turf. But Zook and Frankie, they came to me and they got by me. Frankie got at least a half, maybe 3/4 of a length in front of me. So now I'm in between horses. When we turned for home, Albert the Great was in front. I'm laying second, and Zook's on the outside. And if you can picture this, Zook goes by us by about half length, and I'm in between the two horses. And then all of a sudden, we both went by Albert the Great. So now it's just Zook and Tiznow.
Outside Zook,
And at the 16th pole, I thought, well, looks like I'm going to be second. As a last resort, I put the stick in my left hand and I tapped him once left-handed, and he responded in kind. I could feel the energy. I could feel the response. He came back on and he won by a nose. And the race call that Tom Durkin put up was awesome. I mean, Tiznow wins it for America. I'll never forget that. Because it was a month after 9/11.
Right.
So Tom was acute enough to go ahead and throw that comment in that Tiznow wins it for America, knowing that America needed something to be uplifting.
I did, yeah. It was a very tough battle. Jockey ran awesome as well, and Tiznow, God bless Tiznow, and God bless the heroes, the New York heroes.
I remember that race call. It is chilly. Yeah. I'm sure you had the roar of the crowd right as you crossed that wire, and it is a great dual finish.
Yeah, especially coming back. Yeah, the fans were going crazy.
That's what I like a lot about your finishes. I've seen several where I think there's no way Chris won that race, and then you get that horse to come back on. How do you do it? Is it waiting to ask, just the right timing? Is it?
It's a lot of things. Being fit
Yeah.
is important, because the fitter you are, the better opportunity, the better chances you have to maintain your balance through the stretch drive. You can override a horse. When you override a horse, then you're not staying in perfect cadence with that horse's stride. The rhythm is not as good as it should be. And so to win the close finishes, you have to, as you mentioned, time it. You got to have enough confidence in your mount and in yourself that you can save and save and save until it comes time to push the button. So timing and timing is very important, but so is the physical activity of maintaining balance and rhythm.
The year 2001 was a lot of pressure for you to win this Breeders' Cup for America after 9/11. Tell us about the year 97 in the Travers and the emotional timing of that for you.
Yeah, I was named to ride deputy commander for Wally DeLassy, the trainer in California, in the Travers, August of 97. On the Tuesday before that, I was on the golf course in Rancho Santa Fe, and my sister Barbara called me to tell me that my mom had just passed away. She had been ill for some time. She was diagnosed with brain cancer in January of that year, and the doctors gave her 6 months to live without treatment. And she didn't want to go through chemo and radiation and all that. She was 75 years of age, raised 9 kids the hard way, and she was tired. She was ready. So we provided hospice for her. So she died in her home. And so I took the red eye out of San Diego on that Tuesday night, got into Boston on Wednesday morning. We had the wake on Thursday, and her funeral was on Friday. The next day, I was scheduled to ride deputy commander at Saratoga. And at one point during the afternoon on Friday, one of my brothers asked me, "So when do you fly to Albany?" I said, I'm going to take off. I'm not going to go. I don't think I can do the horse justice, being in this, grieving frame of mind. So Joe, who's my eldest brother, said, "What do you think she would want you to do?" I said, "Well, I think she'd want me to be respectful of her passing and to properly go through the grieving process." He said, I don't agree with you. He said, "I think she would want you to fulfill your engagement, fulfill your responsibility. You told the trainer, or your agent told the trainer, that you're going to ride that horse at Saratoga. I'm not going to tell you what you have to do, but I'm going to strongly suggest you need to fulfill your obligation. So he persuaded me to do that. So I got on an early flight out of Logan Airport in Boston, flew up to Albany. I got to Saratoga at about 11 o'clock in the morning and went right to the jocks room. I rode a couple of races before that race. And so I was able to, physically get engaged, to physically warm up and be ready for that race. It was a big one, $1 million purse, grade 1. Deputy commander was laying first or second most of the way around there. And turning home, I was in front.
Nothing left for a firm success. It's Deputy Commander in front.
And Jerry Bailey on Barron's, who was the favorite, came to my outside.
Barron's and Awesome Again, Crypto Closer and Blazing Sword into the final furlong.
And we went head and head, with Barron's getting head in front around the 8th pole.
McCarron imploring Deputy Commander for one more furlong. It's Barron's the challenger.
And we went head and head like that until about 50 yards from the wire, and Deputy Commander came back on. He dropped his nose in front right on the finish line.
Awesome Again coming up empty. Barron's and Deputy Commander inseparable under the wire. Photo finish, and Deputy Commander wins by a nostril over Barron's.
Mm-hmm.
And I truly felt something spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
It was my first feeling of a spiritual connection. And I think it was her.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want to believe.
Wow.
That the power of that spirit came from my mother.
Mm-hmm.
And galloping back after the race, I was bawling. I was crying. When I got back to unsaddle, Wally DeLassie's wife, Cincy, she was crying. Like, they all knew that my mom had just passed away, and they actually went so far as to get a backup rider in case I didn't come to ride that colt.
Mm-hmm.
And so they knew what I was going through, and so they were very, very emotional as well. And that race was not televised nationally, so in order to have my family find out about it, I called them.
Mm-hmm.
And told them that we won by a nose. And my brother Joe said, "See, I told you." That when I look back, it was fun, but it wasn't as fun as so many others that I rode that didn't have any kind of like emotional connection like that.
Yeah, that's really powerful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And your mother initially was opposed to you becoming a jockey, correct?
Yeah. Yep, she was. She was opposed to Gregg becoming a jockey first, and Gregg had been on the job. He was a hot walker in 1967. He quit college. He quit going to school, much to the dismay of our parents. And he got kicked in the face by a horse. Like I said, he was only on the job for a couple of months, and it shattered his orbital bone, and they had to do reconstructive surgery, put a plate in there to hold his eye up in place. And so, my family found out early how dangerous it is working around thoroughbreds.
Right.
And but amazingly, Gregg mustered up the courage to go back to work for Odie, and I'm glad he did, because I don't know what I'd be doing if he wasn't a jockey. I probably would have. He was my idol. He's such a good athlete. I always wanted to be like Gregg.
Uh-huh.
He's 6.5 years older than I am, and I tried to emulate in every way, shape, or form. So his major in college was accounting, I might have been an accountant. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Which would have been terrible because I'm horrible at math.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm the youngest of 3, and it is great to have older siblings to inspire you. Yeah, there are definitely things I would have never tried without them.
Yeah.
Yeah. You clearly had such laser focus as an athlete. You put on top performances through adversity, and just when it really counted for 9 Breeders' Cups and so many Triple Crown races. What is it? How did you develop your consistency and your mindset to thrive under pressure?
Preparation is the key. I felt less nervous about riding in a big race on a horse that was well thought of. I felt less pressure when I was fully prepared. Mm-hmm. You know, when I was very much into watching videos. Mm-hmm. I did everything I could to access videos of horses I was going to be riding against. If I had never ridden the horse I'm getting ready to ride, I would obviously watch the replays of that horse's races. Mm-hmm. And that would help me develop a strategy for how I'm going to ride that race. How am I going to ride that horse in that particular race? Is he going to go to the front? Is he going to stalk? Is he going to come from way back? What mm-hmm. Does he hate being on the inside? What does he do when the rider uses the crop? Mm-hmm. Some horses will sulk and swish their tail. Mm-hmm. Other horses will respond favorably. So I tried to discern as much as I could from watching replays and looking at the past performances in the daily racing form. Mm-hmm. So the more prepared I was, the less nervous I was.
Yeah, I can definitely see that just in my own riding. And if you know that your fitness is where it needs to be, you're never going to question if you know, how much energy you're going to have to put into those last few strides in a race like we were talking about. Those photo finishes make a difference.
As you probably know, I like to play a lot of golf, mm-hmm. and I love to practice. Mm-hmm. So when I'm going to play a round of golf, I'll get to the golf course about an hour in front because I like to go to the driving range and feel what my swing is like. I do a lot of short game practice, chipping and putting and pitching. So I like to be prepared before I'm going to play, even if it's simply a friendly game. A lot of people will only practice like that when they're going to play in a tournament, whether it's for charity or just a club tournament, whatever. But I practice a lot, and I feel like I play better when I'm fully prepared. So I just, I brought the philosophy of race riding preparation into other things that I do in life too. Mm-hmm. And golf is a big one.
Yeah. You remind me of the golfer, the physicist Bryson DeChambeau. I know that he uses physics, and they talk about his golf swing. I don't watch a lot of golf, but I've heard about him. And you're very analytical about the way you break down race riding. And sounded like throughout your whole career, you're always looking for that slight competitive edge to make yourself just get a little bit more out of a horse, get those inches that matter at the wire. You and I have talked too about your thoughts on aerodynamics and the importance. We see it in professional cycling and swimming and many sports, and the athletes go above and beyond to make sure they're as aerodynamic as possible, shaving every last hair off their body. Talk about your approach and your mindset to that.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I don't understand why the jockeys of today, even the best ones, Irad Ortiz has been leading the country for years and years. I don't understand why they get up so high off a horse's back when they're going down the backstretch in the early part of the races, because they're creating a lot more drag than they need to create, than they would if they get down lower. Back in 1984, there was an horse owner by the name of Rhonda Allen, who took owner's colors, the traditional ones, and ones that she had designed with the idea of more aerodynamic. The traditional owner's colors, they billow as the race is being run. They fill up with air, and that increases the drag considerably. The aerodynamic colors are much more streamlined and they cut through the air better, creating less of a burden on the horse's back. But the jockeys today, they surprise me with how high they get up. I think there's so much room for improvement on their part. I just, and a lot of the real young riders, the ones that are riding in their first or second year riding, they watch Irad and they watch Tyler Gaffalione and they watch some of these other riders. Their legs are straight when they're going down the backstretch. The butt is way up in the air. If they only knew. It's really simple physics. You mentioned Bryson DeChambeau. Yeah, he's a great golfer, and he's brought a whole new scientific approach into his golf swing. Many years ago, that was 1984. Actually, 87 was the first year that Rhonda Allen introduced those aerodynamic colors. It took 3 years because she put them through a wind tunnel test in the physics department at NYU, but she got involved in so many other activities. She didn't really get back to the silks thing until 87. That's when she first introduced them to all of the horses all the runners that Wayne Lucas ran that day at Churchill Downs in the Breeders' Cup. They all had aerodynamic colors, and they were successful.
Wayne Lucas, the trainer of Sacoista, with his third straight victory in this race and his fifth overall, by far the leading trainer of Breeders' Cup winners.
To prove a point, drive down the road at 40 miles an hour, which is the speed of a racehorse, roll your window down with your palm parallel to the ground, and then just turn it, and you'll feel your hand and your arm being pushed back by the wind by the force of the wind.
Yeah, that's only about 4 inches.
That's 4 inches. Yeah. The results of those tests revealed that the drag caused by the traditional colors, let me back up. The mitigation of drag when those new colors, the aerodynamic colors, are worn, equals 9 feet at 3/4 of a mile and 15 feet at a mile. 9 feet is the length of a horse. If I'm sitting in the starting gate and I'm the only one wearing the aerodynamics, I'm a length in front before the gates open. Why wouldn't I do that? Why wouldn't I wear those? So I endeavored. For many years, there were colors there were owners who had the new colors, the aerodynamics, and they also still had the traditional colors in the jockeys' quarters. I know a lot of jocks who, when they had the choice, they'd take the traditional colors because they didn't like the way the other ones felt, because they're tight, they're form fitting, and it felt foreign to them. They didn't like it, so they'd wear. I was the opposite. If I'm wearing a traditional set of colors and there's gaps where the snaps or the Velcro or the buttons are to close the colors, I would tape them shut. I would put duct tape. I'd roll it so it's double stick and put it in those gaps to mitigate the amount of billowing that happened. A lot of my friends in the jocks room thought I was crazy.
You said, but I'm going to beat you.
I might be crazy.
That's right.
But I'm sly.
Very good. Another thing I've heard riders say about you is you're one of the only jockeys who continued to adapt your riding style throughout your career. And they could see you just take on any type of riding style. It seemed like you were continually a student of the game, even with all the success you had. Would you say that's accurate?
There's something to it. I don't know if there were a lot of times, but my style evolved. There's no question. When I was riding in Maryland, I tried to emulate my brother Gregg. I tried to emulate some of the other riders that were there, the more successful ones. And then when I moved out to the West Coast, watching Shoemaker and Pinkai and Daryl McCarr, Sandy Hawley, watching their style, and I would try to glean from the observations the finer points of their particular, what are they doing on a horse's back that makes them as good as they are?
Mm-hmm.
And I would eventually try to meld that into my style. I would try to bring some of those attributes into the way I rode a horse. And so, yeah, my style changed. I wouldn't say a lot of times, but it changed. It evolved over the years.
Yeah. So you're always studying the riders around you. What would you say? You rode against one of the best jockey colonies of all time. What set those riders apart from your average jockey? What makes them great?
Well, number one, their talent. They're, those jocks, that colony that I was riding with and against in Southern California back in the 80s, there are 12 of those jockeys that are now in the Hall of Fame.
Wow.
I was going to Harvard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you were.
I was a Harvard graduate,
Uh-huh.
For horse racing. And their ability to get run out of a horse, their ability to get a horse to cooperate was their number one attribute. Their work ethic, how much time and effort they put into securing the mounts that they got, was impressive. And I tried to follow in their footsteps as best I could. But I tried to follow them for a while. But after that, I wanted to lead them.
Mm-hmm.
I said, enough of this following. I got to go out there and be better.
Yeah.
I want to go out there and outperform them,
Mm-hmm.
outride them. So it was a challenge, but it was a challenge that, excuse me, that I was equal to in a lot of circumstances, a lot of opportunities. I was able to ride as well, if not better, than a lot of the jockeys out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I mean, your records show that, and things your fellow riders have told me. They definitely talk about riding against Chris McCarron.
In 1980 and 81, I was on a streak where in 1980 I won every title, every meet title, starting at Santa Anita, then Hollywood Park, then Del Mar. But then I went to New York the last 3 months of the year, and I was leading rider at Aqueduct and the Meadowlands. I was riding day and night.
Mm-hmm.
And then 81 and 82, I was on such a streak that I won 5 race meets in a row. Then I finished second at the Santa Anita Winter Meet. And then I won 5 race meets in a row again. So had I not finished second or third in the standings at that Santa Anita meet, I would have won 12 race meets in a row against the best jockeys in the world. And that is something that I am thrilled about, something that I'm quite proud of.
Yeah.
And when I think back about it, I said, man, what a life.
Right.
This is...
I want your life.
This is just it's fantastic. And, man, I got so many fond memories of those days, of the height of the competition.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, and to have fun at it,
Yeah.
to be competitive at the highest level,
Mm-hmm.
making a lot of money,
Mm-hmm.
living well, and having fun.
Yeah,
That's superfecta.
it is. You don't always see athletes get to the top and be happy. Sometimes it seems like it becomes empty to people, or I don't know, they have to give up too many things in their life to get there. So it's great you're such a role model for that.
Well, thank you. It never got old. It never, ever got old.
Mm-hmm.
I was, I want to think that I was competitive right up to the last day that I rode.
And he's battling on gamely. Easy Grades tries to go with him, but came home. His sheer class. He's called on all his class today. And it's next up Kentucky. Came home a scintillating winner in the Santa Anita Derby.
As a matter of fact, on the Friday night, a week before I retired, we were all competing in an all-star race at Lone Star Park. 7 days before I hung up my tack, and I won the thing. I won 2 races that night and had a second, and so my mounts garnered more points than anybody else. So that was a nice way to take a bow.
Now, I remember hearing about your decision to retire, and it seems to be the theme that you keep circling back to about respecting your connections, respecting the horses you're riding. What was that reason? How did you come to that conclusion that it was time for you to transition?
I lost my heart.
Mm-hmm.
Simple as that. I lost my heart. I didn't want to get hurt anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I had, last count, I had 12 different fractures of bones. Most of them were minor, but they'd put me out of action for a while. Couple of them were like, oh man, this could have ended my career, but it didn't. You know, when you get a little long in the tooth, that ground feels harder.
Yeah, I bet.
And the recovery time is longer. There's no question that as you age, the repair process that your body goes through slows down. It takes longer to heal, and it's more difficult to get yourself back in shape than when you were younger. At least that was my experience. And you know, when you think about it, it's so hard to beat Lafitte and Eddie and Gary Stevens and Sandy. It's so difficult to outride them when you're 100%.
Yeah.
It's a challenge every single race to outsmart them, to outride them, outfinish them on a daily basis is a huge challenge when you're 100%.
Yeah.
When you're thinking that you don't want to get hurt, you can't be at 100%. So if I'm anything less than, even if I'm 95% or 90, I have greatly diminished the positive outcomes. So I just got to the point where I thought, number one, I'm not doing myself justice by competing when I have other things on my mind.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not doing my owner, my trainer, and most importantly, the betting public. I'm not doing them justice if I'm going to go out there and ride with a cloudy way of thinking.
Yeah.
And it was time. I called my brother Gregg a couple of weeks before I actually pulled the trigger. And man, we chatted for about an hour. And the final thing he said was, yeah, you're ready. You're ready. All you got to do is make the announcement.
So Gregg remained your mentor throughout your entire career.
Absolutely, right to the last day.
What was the name of the last horse you rode, and how did you two finish together?
I rode a very nice, rather little horse. He was only 15.3, called Came Home, for trainer Paco Gonzalez, who was a terrific horseman, and owners Trudy McCaffrey and John Toffett. And we were 3-5 in the affirmed stakes at Hollywood Park, and he won. He won. I rode him in the Derby, Kentucky Derby, in his previous start. I won 4 stakes on him at Santa Anita. He won the Santa Anita Derby, and he went into the Kentucky Derby as one of the favorites. And he didn't like the track at Churchill. He didn't run very well. And then Paco gave him just a short break in the middle of May, and then put him back to his paces and had him ready to run a mile 16th at Hollywood in the affirmed handicap, and he won.
Mm-hmm.
That was fun going out like that.
And his name was Came Home.
Came home.
Yeah, so meaningful.
If his name went home, that would have been appropriate too.
Uh-huh. I know you said earlier you're not great at math, which I doubt. You did the math once to estimate how many horses between the morning training and the number of races you rode. About how many horses do you think you were on in your career?
Over 50,000.
Mm-hmm.
Not unique horses,
Mm-hmm.
but 50,000 times I threw a leg over a horse's back.
Mm-hmm.
34,000 plus in the afternoon, and I know I rode at least half of that, or 15,000, in the mornings.
Yeah. If you could go back and talk to your younger self, is there anything you would have told yourself to do different?
Moved to California sooner than I
Get the
did.
cold winters.
I rode in Maryland for 4 years, and I was invited to compete. My first year was a big year. I was leading out of the country, and I was invited to an all-star race at Hollywood Park in 1975. And my agent wouldn't let me go. He was afraid that if I saw the palm trees and the beautiful weather out there, I might want to go to California for good. Well, he was right.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't go. But I went the next year. She invited Mrs. Everett, who owned Hollywood Park, invited me back again in '76, and I went out there and just loved it.
Yeah.
And my eldest brother Joe, was living in Redondo Beach at the time, and I stayed with him a couple of days and took in some of the sights. And I thought, man, this is something else.
Mm-hmm.
Warm winters and no snow. So, but 2 years later, the following year, 1977, I received a letter from an agent in California, enticing me to try my luck, try my skills
Mm-hmm.
at West Coast riding. And I waited till the following March. So March 27th of 1978 is when I arrived in Los Angeles. I know the exact date because that's my birthday.
Oh, wow. Very cool.
Landed on my birthday in Los Angeles,
Uh-huh.
and that's where I plied my trade the rest of the time.
You never did care about being a big fish in a small pond. You seem to have that champion mindset.
Well, I don't want to sound contradictory.
You can contradict me.
Because myself, self-contradictory. Because the pond in Southern California is definitely bigger than the one in Maryland. But while I was riding in Maryland, I rode against some really talented people, and I never considered it. I never considered myself a big fish in a little pond. Yeah, I was a big fish, but it was challenging riding there. There were a
Mm-hmm.
bunch of really good riders there. So I don't want to discount the competition that I had in Maryland. It was tougher in California, but the experience of riding against really top riders for 4 years was a big help to me when I went west.
Yeah, I'm sure. You worked in several roles in racing after retiring from riding. What parts of the industry did it teach you that you wish you'd known when you were riding? I know we've discussed the finished photo.
One of the things that I would change is being much more diligent about riding my horse well past the finish line instead of to the finish line. That would that's something I would love to go back and change. Although, I felt like I was tough to beat in close finishes. There were times when I wish I was more aggressive when I'm finishing third and fourth. But that's water under the bridge. So all I can do is try to impart some of that experience and knowledge into others that are just coming up the ladder.
Yeah. What advice would you give to a young rider starting their career?
Keep your eyes and your ears open. Ask questions. Observe. Discover the attributes of the talented riders, the most successful riders, and try to emulate them, with the exception of getting way up off the horse's back when you're going down the backstretch. Get low. Get low and stay low.
Yeah.
I wasn't the lowest rider for sure. But I didn't get as high off a horse's back as these young riders do today. It's a long way to go. When you're riding a 1/16, 1.25 miles, 1.5 miles, there's a long way to go, and there's a lot of strain on your legs. So, yeah, getting up higher off a horse's back, even just a few inches, 6 inches, is less strain on your leg because of the angles involved. But you're also increasing the drag, which increases the hindrance.
I think it goes back to what you said about preparation. If we ride like that all the time or do extra strength training.
Extra strength training is very important. You got to keep those legs strong, your core strong. That all helps with the balance, but it helps you finish more strongly when the races are close, for whatever position it might be. Pay close attention for the young riders that watch the replays, listen to comments that other jockeys are making about a race that was just run, and trying to glean as much as you can from the knowledge that they're unknowingly sharing. Sometimes they'll talk about, I should have done this, I should have done that, I never should have hit this filly because she didn't like it. Take all that in and lock it away. Keep that information for later. It can be very useful. So my main advice is to pay close attention. Observe the races every single day. Doesn't matter if you're sitting in the jocks room, not riding a race. Pay attention to every single moment and put that knowledge to use.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing with us a lifetime of knowledge and wisdom. You've been a great mentor to me and to many others. I just think it's great, and I hope a lot of our listeners have good takeaways from this.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Peterson. The pleasure has been all mine, and I really enjoyed working with you for the brief time that we did spend some time together, trying to hone your skills and stuff, and your tribute to the riding colony, and I'm glad to know you as a friend. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm glad to know you too.
And now for a moment from our next episode with Dana Zook, airing April 10th, 2025.
Did you have a pre-race routine when you're in the room to get your mind focused?
No. I was focused from the time I stepped in that room. Let me say that. I wasn't one that had to concentrate. When I stepped in that room, it was like stepping into a ring to fight. I was in there for business, and that was to win races.
Boundless is a podcast that explores the stories of individuals who have accomplished the seemingly impossible by breaking molds and redefining success through unique challenges, pivotal moments, and unbreakable determination. This episode of Boundless is brought to you by Amwager, where horse racing fans can be part of the action anytime, anywhere. Watch, wager, and enjoy races from tracks across the country on a fast, secure platform built for racing enthusiasts. Whether you're following your favorite horses or jockeys or discovering new tracks, Amwager makes it easy to stay connected to the sport you love. Getting started is simple. Sign up today at amwager.com and enjoy a 100% deposit match. Terms apply. See amwager.com for details.
If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, help is available. Please call 1-800-GAMBLER.